this video, we're going to learn how to take the browser's default scrolling, which isn't that smooth, and we will turn it into a way smoother version. Now this works with a mouse wheel, it works with a trackpad, and it works with the scroll bar as well. We can change the scroll duration, speed, and smoothness if we wish to do so. Now this version doesn't use native scrolling, but it does mimic the native scroll bar. In fact, let's go ahead and go through how we achieve this. So first, all of the website's content will be inside the div with the class container scroll. Then we have a div with the class overlay after the container scroll div, which is fixed on top of everything. That overlay then has an overlay content div inside that copies the height of the container scroll, which gives the overlay a scroll bar. We then use clip path on our overlay, so the scroll bar is the only thing showing, and then we simply sync the translation of container scroll with the overlay scroll bar. And that is pretty much it, so now we will start to code this. So we will start off with an abbreviation which will add the basic HTML elements for our site, and then we will link our style sheet and our script. Remember to add a defer to our script, and what I do next is create the files by control and clicking, which is a shortcut in Visual Studio Code. Next, inside the body tag, we will add a div with the class container scroll, and then inside that we will add 4 divs with the class page, and then we will add a numbered class by doing page $$ times 4. Next, by using Alt or Option on Mac and clicking down, we will go inside each page div and we will add an anchor tag which will link to an empty HTTP site, and then inside each anchor tag we will write tag 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now I do want to add some inputs to make sure that we provide a solution for when people want to navigate the page through tabbing or for when a page increases in size, so we will add a text input and a checkbox input. And lastly, after the container scroll div, we will add a new div with the class overlay, and inside it we will add a div with the class overlay content. And we are finished with our HTML, so now we will go to our CSS and we start off by adding box size in border box to the HTML, and then using the asterisk symbol and the before and after attributes, which selects everything, we do a box sizing of inherit, margin of 0 and padding of 0. Next, we will select the body tag and we will give it a width of 100%, a height of 100 viewport height. Then for font family, I like to choose the last selection with Verdana. Then we will set the font weight to bolder, then the font size to 1.6 rem, and lastly, we will set text align to center and overflow to hidden. However, we will use overflow hidden later on, so for now we will comment it out. Next, we will select the container scroll div and we will give it a width of 100% and a height of 100%. Then we will give it a transform with the value matrix, and inside the parentheses we will do 1, 0, 0, each number separated by commas. This first line is the x-axis of the matrix, and the second line, which will be 1, 0, 0 as well, will be the y-axis. The first number of both the x and y-axis represents the scale property, the second number represents the skew property, and the third number represents the translate property. Next, we will select the page divs and we will give it a width of 100%, a height of 100%, a display of grid, and a place content of center. Then we will select the first page and we will give it a background color of #EE, then we will copy it 3 times and we will change the name to page 2, page 3, and page 4, and then we will also change the colors to #DD, #CCC, and #BB. And now it looks like so. As you can see, we have the pages in different colors and the anchor tags are now centered. Next, we will select the anchor tag and we will set the color to #000. Then we will select the overlay div and we will set its position to fixed. We will set both top and left to 0. We will give it a width of 100 viewport width, a height of 100 viewport height, and an overflow Y of scroll. And lastly, we will set the background color to RGBA, and inside the parentheses we will do 255 for red, 0 for green and blue, and 0.1 for the transparency. And this is what it looks like now. You can see that we are still able to scroll. Next, we will select the overlay content div and we will give it a height of 400 viewport height, which resembles the 4 pages we've created. And if we use the scroll wheel on our mouse, you will see that we can't scroll, but we can use the scroll bar on the side. Next, we will go to the body tag and we will uncomment overflow hidden. And now, as you can see, scrolling moves the overlay div scroll bar, but nothing moves, which is what we want. Next, we will go to the bottom of our CSS and we will do add media, and inside the parentheses we will check if the user prefers color scheme to dark, and if they do, then we will select our overlay div and we will set the color scheme to dark. This sets the overlay scroll bar to dark mode if the user has dark mode enabled on their operating system. However, I'm going to keep it as it was before. Next, we will go to our HTML and we will give our checkbox input a class of checkbox. Then we will go to our CSS and we will select our page div, and if it has the checkbox checked, then that page now has a height of 150%. And just to make sure this works, I will set overlay to display none and comment out overflow hidden from the body. So now if we go to tag 2 and we tick the checkbox, you can see that the scroll bar on the side changes position and size. And we're pretty much done with our CSS, so let's uncomment overflow hidden and comment out display none, and now we can work on our JavaScript. So we're going to start off by creating the variable scroll value, which we will set to be 0, and then we will select our container scroll div by using document.query selector, and we will assign it to the variable container scroll. Next we will do container scroll.style.transition, and we will set it to transition the transform property for 500 milliseconds, and we will give it an easing of cubic Bezier 0.05001. You can change these values to your liking, but I found these values to look pretty good. Next we will do window.addEventListener, and we will listen for the wheel event, and we will do an arrow function which will pass in e, which is the event, and we will do console.log e.delta_y, and as you can see on Chrome at least, we get 100 when scrolling down and minus 100 when scrolling up. So now what we can do is set scroll value to minus equal e.delta_y, and then to apply scroll value we will do container scroll.style.transform, and we will set it to matrix 10010, and then using string interpolation we will pass in scroll value. Now as you can see it works, however there's two issues. The first one is that we can scroll above and below our document, and the second one is that when we reload the page the scroll bar resets but the document is still translated. So to fix this we will select our overlay div using document.query selector, and then we will do a set timeout that waits 10 milliseconds, and inside it we will do document.documentElement.scroll to 00, and then we will do the same with overlay div. So we will do overlay div.scroll to 0 on the x-axis and 0 on the y-axis, and this makes sure that when we reload the page both the overlay div and the document scroll is reset. And now we have to fix the fact that we can scroll above and below our document, so to fix this we will go to our wheel event listener, and we will do an if statement that checks if scroll value is above 0, and if it is then we set it to be 0. This makes sure that we can't scroll above the document, and to make sure we can't scroll below the document we do an if statement that checks if scroll value is below, minus parentheses container scroll.scroll height minus document.documentElement.client height, and if so then scroll value becomes the whole section we wrote inside the if statement. What this section does is it takes the whole container scroll height and we simply take away the viewport height from it. Now you can see when we scroll we no longer scroll off the document. Now the next thing we need to work on is the ability to click. As you can see, if I try clicking on any of these tags or the inputs I won't be able to. So to fix this we will go at the end of our script and we will do overlay div.style.clipPath, and we will set it to polygon, and inside the parentheses we will do 0 100%, 100% 100%, 100% 0 and 0 0. And now if we reload the page it looks just like before, and that's because the values we've set creates a 4-point polygon that covers the whole area. Next we will go to the 0 values on the x-axis and we will replace it with calc 100% minus 25 pixels. And as you can see the overlay div or the red background is now only 25 pixels wide, and we can click on the tags we've created. Now to make it the exact value of the scroll bar used by the browser we can log out overlay div.offsetWidth minus overlay div.clientWidth, and when we reload the page you will see that we get 15 pixels for Chrome. Now what we can do is use this along with string interpolation to replace the 25 pixels we wrote before. Make sure you still have pixels at the end, and now you can see that it's perfectly flush with the scroll bar. Now there is one issue, and that is with Firefox. Firefox minimizes the scroll bar when it's not in use, so the clip path actually hides overlay div completely. So to detect that we're using Firefox, we will create a constant isFirefox, and we will set it to the boolean css.support, and we will pass in the parentheses mozappearance and none. So if we console log out isFirefox, you can see that on Chrome we get false and 15 pixels, and on Firefox we get true and 0 pixels. So now we can make a different use case for Firefox browsers when we set our clip path. So we will do if isFirefox, and we will copy the clip path line, and we will use 12 pixels instead of the string interpolation. Again, make sure you've put px after 12, and now we will do else, and we will add our previous clip path line. And now we can see the overlay div to the side, and when we hover over the scroll bar you can see that it extends to the 12 pixels we've set. So now we can go to our CSS and comment out the background color, and we will also comment out the height of our overlay content div. Now we will go back to our JavaScript and we will select our overlay content div by using document.query selector. And so now we will do overlay div content.style.height is equal to container scroll.scroll height, and don't forget to add pixels at the end. And as you can see now we have our overlay div scroll bar, which looks just like before, and the next thing we're going to do is synchronize our matrix translation to the overlay div scroll bar. So we will go to our wheel event listener and we will do overlay div.scroll to, and we will do 0 for the x-axis and minus scroll value for the y-axis. So now when we scroll, the overlay div scroll bar updates as well. We can also use our trackpad, however there's one issue with this, and that is that on Firefox using the trackpad and updating scroll to so often makes the whole thing lag. So we're going to make another use case for Firefox, but doing this could also help with performance in general. So we will go above the wheel event listener and we will create is scrolling and we will set it to false, and then we will also create scrolling timeout and scrolling interval. And then inside the wheel event listener, before using scroll to, we will do if is Firefox, and inside that we will do scroll interval is equal to set interval, and we will give it an interval time of 150 milliseconds. Then we will simply copy the scroll to line inside the interval, and then we will do if is scrolling is false, and we will put the interval inside it. Then after the if statement, we will set is scrolling to true, and then we will do scrolling timeout is equal to set timeout, and we will give it a timeout of 1500 milliseconds, so 1.5 seconds, and inside it we will set is scrolling to false, and we will do clear scrolling interval. And then lastly, we will also clear the scrolling timeout, not just inside the timeout, but also at the start of the is Firefox if statement. And then we will do else, and we will put the scroll to line inside it. Now as you can see, it's a lot smoother, and basically what we've done is we checked if we scrolled once, and if we did, then the interval starts to run and it keeps running until we've stopped scrolling, and that is stopped by the set timeout. Now what you might have noticed is the fact that the scroll bar is very choppy, but there's an easy fix for that. So I'll go up to where we've set is Firefox, and I will do if is Firefox, then we will set overlay div.style.scroll behavior to smooth. Now you can set this by default if you want to, it doesn't have to be just Firefox. So now as you can see, the scroll bar is no longer choppy. The next thing we will work on is being able to use the scroll bar to translate container scroll, because right now it doesn't do anything when we use it. So we will do overlay div.addEventListener, and we will listen for the pointer down event, and then inside that we will add another event listener, so overlay div.addEventListener, and we will listen for the scroll this time, and for the function we will put overlay div scroll update. Next we will work on the function, so we will do function overlay div scroll update, and inside it we will set scroll value to be equal to minus overlay div.scrollTop. And then we will apply this by doing container scroll.style.transform, and we will set it to the matrix we've used before, and of course we will use string interpolation to pass scroll value. And as you can see, now the scroll bar works, and it works in Firefox as well. Now the next thing we will work on is removing the scroll event listener when we pointer up, because we don't want to keep adding more and more event listeners. So we will do window.addEventListener, and we will listen for the pointer up event, and we will also pass in the event or E inside the arrow function for later, and then we will copy the scroll event listener, and we will simply change add to remove. And now you can see that it works just like before. Now the next thing we will work on is making sure that when we resize the page, the scroll bar and the height of the page gets recalculated. So we will do window.addEventListener, and we will listen for the resize event, and we will use a normal arrow function. So right now if we go to our website and we scroll down a bit and then we resize our browser so it becomes taller, if we scroll down you'll see that the scroll bar says we are at the bottom of our page, but we are not. As you can see, we can continue to scroll, and if we resize it back you will see that it now scrolls past the document's height. So first we will do if scroll value is lesser than the minus of container scroll.scrollHeight minus document.documentElement.clientHeight, then scroll value becomes that whole section we just wrote. And this makes sure that we're not scrolled past our document like we are just now. Next we will apply the container scroll transform with the scroll value matrix, and we can copy that from above. And then lastly we will do if overlay div content.style.height is not equal to container scroll.scrollHeight, then we will set overlay div content.style.height to container scroll.scrollHeight plus px at the end. And now as you can see, when we reload the page and we resize, the scroll bar and the height gets recalculated. And now the next thing we will work on is navigation using arrow keys, page up, page down, and the home and end buttons. So we will do window.addEventListener, and we will listen for key down, and then we will pass in the event or E inside the arrow function, and inside it we will check if the key we pressed is equal to arrow down, then we will set scroll value to minus equals to 40. Then we will duplicate that line and we will change it to arrow up instead of arrow down, and we will also change minus equals 40 to plus equals 40. Then we will duplicate these two lines and we will change arrow to page, and we will replace 40 with document.documentElement.clientHeight times 0.9. And the reason we use 0.9 is because we want to leave some space for cases like when there's some text midway the page transition. And then then lastly, we will do the home button, which we will set to 0, and then the end button, which we will set to the minus of container scroll.scroll height minus document.document element.client height. And then below all of this, we will run the update scroll value function, which we will create right after. So we will do function update scroll value, and then we will go up to our wheel event listener, and we will copy the lines where we've set the scroll value to not go above 0 or below the document height. We will also copy the container scroll transform line and the overlay div scroll to line. And then we will paste all of that inside the function, and now if we go ahead and we reload our page, you will see that we can scroll up and down with our arrow keys, and then we will also be able to do the same with page up and page down, and then the same with the home and end button. Next, we will work on the case where the user is on mobile or when the user is on a PC but has a touch display, as right now we aren't able to scroll by touch. We can click, but we cannot scroll. So we're going to go at the end of our script, and we will do window.add event listener, and we will listen for the touch start event, and then we will copy and paste this event listener, and we will change the event from touch start to mouse move. Then we will go back above and we will create the variable last input method, which we will set to have the default value of null, and depending on the event being used, this variable is either going to be assigned the string touch or the string mouse. So inside the touch start event listener, we will check if last input method is not equal to touch, then we will set it to the string touch, and then we will also copy and paste this inside the mouse move event listener, and of course we will change the string touch to mouse. Next, we will go to the touch start event listener, and we will set document.body.style.overflow to auto, then we will set overlay div.style.overflow y to hidden, and then we will also set overlay div.scroll2 to 0,0. And then lastly, we have to reset the container scroll as well, so we will first set scroll value to 0, and then we will apply the container scroll transform with the new scroll value. Then for mouse move, we will copy the overflow lines and we will switch them around so the body has a value of hidden and overlay div has the value of scroll, and then lastly we will set the document element scroll2 to 0,0. And now as you can see, if we switch to mobile, we are able to scroll up and down, and then if we switch back to our mouse, we are able to scroll as well. The only thing is that when switching between, the document will scroll back to the top, as you can see here. Now the next thing we're going to work on is fixing the tab navigation system. As you can see, when we tab around, yes it works, but overlay div scrollbar is fixed to the top, and if we try to scroll down, you can see that it glitches out. So we will go to the bottom of our script and we will do window.add event listener, and we will listen for the event focus in, and we will pass in the event or e inside the arrow function, and we will set document element.scroll2 to 0,0 because the reason tabbing worked before is because the document was being scrolled and not container scroll. Next, we will check if the target we focused on has the tag name a for anchor, and then we will copy it and do or, and then we will paste what we've copied, and this time we will check if the tag name is input, and then we will do the same for text area and then again for button. You can obviously add more tags if you have them, but I just added the majority of cases. Inside the if statement, we will create the variable target rect, and we will set it to e.target.getBoundingClient rect for rectangle, and then below we will do console.log, and we will log out target rect.top. So now if we tab, we will focus on the first tag, then the second one, then the text input, then the checkbox, then tag 3 and tag 4. And all of these numbers are the amount of pixels from the top of our viewport. So to center the viewport on the tags, we will set scroll value to be equal to the minus of target rect.top plus overlay div.scrollTop minus document.document element.client height divided by 2 plus target rect.height divided by 2. And all we have to do to apply scroll value is run the function we've previously coded, which is update scroll value. So now if we reload the page, you can see that we can tab through the tags and the scroll bar gets updated. Now the next thing we will work on is the middle mouse panning, also known as auto scroll, as right now it doesn't work. So we will go between our pointer down and pointer up event listeners, and we will create a few variables. We will do let auto scroll handler, then we will do let dragging, then let pointered up, and we will set that to false by default. Then we will do let new interval, and then we will do let current difference. Then we will make some space around, and we will do window.add event listener, and we will listen for the pointer down event, and we will also pass in the event or e inside the arrow function. Next, we will check if we used our middle mouse button. So if e.button is equal to 1, then we will do a simple console.log that logs out middle clicking. So as you can see, when I right click, nothing gets logged out, but when I click while trying to scroll, you can see that we log out middle clicking. So first, now we will make it so that when we middle click, the dragging value gets reset back to false. Then we will create a variable start y, which we will set to e.client y, and then we will do document.body.style.cursor, and we will set it to move. Next, let's log out e.clienty to see what it actually does, and so what it does is it logs out the vertical coordinate position of the mouse inside the window. Next, we will set AutoScrollHandler to a new function AutoScrollCalc, and we will pass in the variable startY as the parameter. Next, we will do window.addEventListener, and we will listen for the event pointer move, and we will use AutoScrollHandler as the function. Next, we will work on the function, so we will do function AutoScrollCalc, and we will use the parameter startY, and inside it we will do return function, and we will pass in e or the event as the parameter. So basically, AutoScrollCalc is assigned to return a function with the event parameter, and that is assigned to AutoScrollHandler, which is used for the pointer move event listener. So to understand this better, we will log out e.clienty minus the parameter startY, and as you can see, we get the difference between the client_y of pointer down and the client_y of pointer move. So basically, we use the client_y of both events. Next, we will check if the difference between them is above or equal to 16 pixels, and to do so, we will use math.abs, which is the absolute value of e.clienty minus startY, and if so, then we will set dragging to true, and our console log out dragging, and if else, then we will set dragging to false. So as soon as we move past 16 pixels vertically, then it starts to log out dragging, and the reason we do this is because that's how normal web browsers approach the middle mouse panning. So as you can see on our odometer website, only once we move a certain amount does it start to pan. Next, we will reset the values when we pointer up, so we will check if we're pointering up for the middle click, so we will do if e.button is equal to 1, and if dragging is true, then we will reset our cursor, so we will do document.body.style.cursor, and we will set it to default. Next, we will remove the pointer move event listener, so we will copy it from above, and we will change add to remove. Next, we will reset the pointer dub value back to false, and then we will copy the whole if statement, and we will change it to an else if statement, and we will check if dragging is false instead. So if we're not dragging down from the start, that means we have to pointer up again to reset the cursor, so we will do if pointer dub is false, then we will set it to true, and if pointer dub is true, then we will move the previous code we wrote inside it. So first I'm going to hold down drag and let go, and then the second time I'm going to click once, then drag, and I will click again, and as you can see, we've made it work both ways. Now there's two issues: dragging keeps running when we've clicked off, and the event listeners are stacked on top of each other, as you can see by how fast dragging is being logged out. So we're going to go to our pointer down event, and we will check if pointer up is false, and we will move the code below inside. Next, we're going to work on making it pan, so we're going to go to our AutoScrollCalc function, and we will set current difference to e.clienty minus startY. Next, we're going to remove the console.log, and we will check if new interval is faulty, and if that's the case, then we will assign new interval to a set interval, and I will set 30 milliseconds for the interval, and inside I will set scroll value to minus equal current difference divided by 3, and then I will add the update scroll value function. Then all we have to do now is copy all of this inside the else statement, and then we will go down to our pointer up event listener, and we will write in both areas after we've reset pointer up to false, and we will do clear interval new interval, and then we will set new interval to null so it's falsy, and then for the dragging is true if statement, I will reset dragging back to false. And now as you can see, we are able to pan around. We can do this while holding down once or by clicking once, dragging, and then resetting. This also works on Firefox, and Firefox actually adds this extra guide in the background, as you can see here, which is pretty cool. And the last thing we will work on is the checkbox that increases the page size. Many websites have this when they expand a description, for example, so it's pretty crucial we do this. So right now, if we go to our checkbox and we tick it, the page will increase in size, but you will see that if we scroll down the scroll bar, it looks like it reached the bottom, but we did not. Now this is a simple fix, so we will go above our pointer down event listener, and we will do overlay div.add event listener, and we will listen for the scroll event, and we will use a normal arrow function, and inside it we will check if overlay div content.style.height is not equal to container scroll.scroll height. Then we will set overlay div content.style.height to the container scroll.scroll height, and then don't forget to add px at the end. And now as you can see, when we tick the checkbox nothing happens, but as soon as we scroll it immediately updates. And we're pretty much done. The next thing I will do is show you how to take a normal website and apply what we've done so you can apply the smooth scroll effect on any website you like. So as you can see, we are starting off with our website that doesn't have any smooth scroll applied. And what we will do first is go to our head tag and we will add a new script. We will call it main.js and make sure to defer the script. Then we will control and click it to create the file, and then all we have to do is paste all of our code inside it. Then we will go back to our HTML and we will minimize all the sections we have here, and then we will add a new div with the class container scroll, and then we will select all the sections and we will move them inside the container scroll div. And then at the end we will add a div with the class overlay, and then we will add a new div inside it with the class overlay content. And now you can see that it kind of works, but we have a few things we need to fix. So we will go to our CSS file, and then we will go to the body tag and we will give it an overflow of hidden. Then we will select the overlay class and we will give it a position of fixed, a top of 0, a left of 0, then a width of 100 viewport width, a height of 100 viewport height, and an overflow Y of scroll. Now if we reload, you can see that we now have the scroll bar to the side, however there's still a few issues. The first one is the navigation bar, and the reason it doesn't work is because it was meant to be a sticky navigation bar, so if you have elements of position sticky or fixed, the only thing you need to do is take them outside of the container scroll div. The second issue is that the container scroll doesn't actually include everything. You can see that the top of the page is not included, as well as the bottom of the page. If I force container scroll to scroll further, you can see that it stops right at the bottom, which wasn't like that in the original. Now the reason this happens is because there's margins being used at the top and bottom of our sections, and since they're inside the div container scroll, the margins get ignored. So we will go to our CSS, and for this website we will go to the main section and we will replace margin top with padding top, and now you can see that container scroll includes the top part as well. However, the bottom part is still cut out, so I will go to the YML courses section and I will add a padding bottom of 12 rem, and we will remove 12 rem from the margin. And now, as you can see, the page looks the same as the original. You can see that if we expanded the video, the scroll bar changes size as well, and everything should work now. And this is it. Well done for making it this far, and as always, let me know what I should do next.